Hi, everybody. Jennifer here from Gals, Ghosts, and Ladies, doing a Saturday night live stream on Friday night. Why? Because I have plans tomorrow. So that's why I decided to go live tonight. So if there is anybody watching, let me know that you can see me and that you can hear me. And please know I am working diligently on trying to improve my lighting, my camera angles, my sound, that kind of stuff. So I appreciate your patience. And I also want to say big thanks to Matt Kay because he gives me a lot of behind the scenes advice. Um, he's a producer, and I met him before, very nice guy, and he gives me a lot of really valid advice, and I try a lot of his stuff. But and I also, I don't have the money for like this super professional lighting, so bear with me. But I do hope that I'm improving. I bought a better camera, 1080 DPI. I see a huge difference. I hope the sound is all right. This is my very fun microphone that changes color, but I actually learned how to work with a green screen. So I have a green screen behind me, and the microphone changes colors, and when it cycles through to green, you can see right through me to the green screen. It's actually quite funny. But it's also very distracting, so I did have to turn that off. But it's pretty funny. Maybe I'll film a clip and share it with you guys one of these days. But again, welcome to Gals, Ghosts, and Ladies. Let's see, who do we have with us in comments? We've got Joy. Thank you for letting me know that you can see and hear everything. Hello, Erin, and hello, Sue. Sue knows I just get out of the makeup chair. So I'm freshly made up. My hairspray is done. I got lots of Aquanet on a night with this kind of humidity. I apologize to the hole in the ozone layer. Lots of Aquanet over the years. How about the big hair in the 80s, right? Um, but anyways, I digress. Let's see, what do we got for you tonight? As always, I want to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Thank you for watching on Facebook. I appreciate that. And I am not monetized. I don't ask anybody for money. I support myself doing this. The only thing that I really ask you guys to do is like, share, subscribe. You don't even have to put the notification bell on, and watch a video and comment, say something, say hi, Jennifer, or something like that. I'm really trying to build an algorithm. I'm trying to be seen. And in order to be seen, you have to be seen, like I said last week. And right now, I'm only limited to 50 invitations. And so I thought I had kind of found a way around that by sending links and DMs out. And then Facebook said I sent out too many DMs and my account got restricted. So I really appreciate if on both Facebook and YouTube, if you can like and share and subscribe and all that good stuff and comment, leave me a heart, that kind of thing. I do appreciate it. It helps the algorithm, whatever that is. Thank you very much. I think this is really like hard to break into, and I'm trying to do this all on my own. As a hobby. I'm trying to be a YouTuber, I guess you could say. So please like, share, subscribe, heart, all that kind of stuff. Um, let's see, like I said, we're going live tonight on Friday because tomorrow night, Saturday night, I'm going with some friends to Emory Estate, and I'm super excited about that. So I'm just going to drop this episode that you're watching tonight. I'm going to drop it tomorrow as a rerun. So anybody who misses it, you will be able to see it. And thank you for watching tonight and tomorrow night and anytime later. As I always say, there's so many podcasts and stuff that I love. That I can't always watch when they're on, and sometimes I'll listen while I'm putting on my makeup or while I'm doing a little housework, and that's how I catch up on these things. So feel free to watch me at a later time too. And I appreciate that. Keep in mind, I am new to live streaming. Feel free to critique, but please be kind. And I am new to StreamYard. I am learning as I go along, but I feel like I'm getting better every single week. And you know me, I'm going to ask for forgiveness for my notes, of which there are many. Jennifer and her purple crayon. Who remembers Harold and the purple crayon? That's me. Me and my colored paper, my colored pencils, my pink skull pencil holder, and just surrounding my stuff with all this cool stuff that makes me happy in my old age. So tonight, what I want you to do is pour a cup of coffee, crack a cold beer, pour a glass of wine. This is a 420 friendly space. Smoke them if you got them. I know I sure did. But get yourself comfortable. Get a lap blanket. I got my heater on. I am coming at you live from Lizzie Lou Studio, where it's always a little chilly. Let me shut the heater off for now. Thank you for that. Um, and yeah, Lizzie Lou Studio, named after my cousin Michelle and myself. This is where we are. We're at Lizzie Lou Studio. Remind folks that we are an 18 and over space. Sometimes, my joke, I do get a little disturbed that we're not more disturbed by the disturbing things that we talk about. And also, I do swear a lot. I'm almost 62 and I'm not going to change my language for anybody. So I am not apologizing in advance for swearing. And as always, shout out to Ladybug Pest Control, my day job. As you all know, live streaming is a hobby of mine. And if you are going to have if you're going to throw your all into a hobby, you have to have a day job that your hours, etc., support that. And I do. And I work with some great people who really support what I do here. I really appreciate that. So thank you, Ladybug Pest Control and Linda. I want to say thank you to my cousin tonight. My cousin is a pro wrestler. My cousin is Grappling Greg, and he wrestles in Bristol. He wrestles down in Fall River. He wrestles in Tennessee, wrestles all over the place, and he has won all kinds of awards. But I want to give a shout out to my cousin Greg now and a little bit later. I'm going to say more about him. But my cousin Greg, tonight's episode is about urban legends of Connecticut. And my cousin Greg, Grappling Greg the wrestler, he worked at Lake Compounds for 12 years. So I shot him out text and said, hey, you know anything about Lake Compounds, any spooky stories or whatever? And like within a minute, bam, cousin Greg delivered like he always does. That's why I love you, Greg. Within a minute, Greg had hit me with boom, 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 all these powerful punches of information. And when I took each piece of information and looked them up, oh, yeah, for sure. Greg was absolutely right. So he was a really good source for this. So again, I want to share with you a picture of my cousin Grappling Greg, who I'm also so proud to say that I've seen him wrestle, and he's wonderfully entertaining and very much children oriented and family oriented. And we used to go with his nephews, my little cousins, when they were really little, and watch them wrestle. And it's just amazing to watch my cousin Greg live his dream. And here I am living mine. So again, shout out to my cousin Greg, because he really delivered on giving me some good information as some starting points for looking up some urban legends about Lake Compounds, which is in Bristol, Connecticut. And we are going to talk more about that in a few minutes. So I think we pretty much covered most of our housekeeping. We do want to keep our conversations on the mysterious and the macabre. I'm excited to say that I've been a location scout and production assistant for Truth or Scare, which is a game show on the Paranormal XL network. Please check them out on Facebook and YouTube and subscribe and watch for some amazing content, not just Truth or Scare, for which I am a production assistant and location scout, but I'm also going to be a contestant on their show. And last but not least, super exciting news, and I will definitely announce this more formally as time goes on, but Gals, Ghosts, and Ladies got picked up by the Paranormal XL network. So my live stream is going to be coming at you from a network. So that is very, very exciting news. And I've been working with the people over at the Paranormal XL network and the XL network. Oh, there's so much more there besides paranormal. There's sports, there's news, there's there's something for everybody at the XL network. Like I said, I'll be making a more formal announcement, but yeah, my live stream is going to be coming at you from a network. Once we get past the spring, these things do take a while, but I'm really, and like I said, I'll make a more formal announcement, but I'm really excited to share these things with you. I hope you're as excited as I am, because most of you have been on this journey with me. As corny as that sounds, but you have, like Michelle and oh, hi Matt. I brought your name up, and Lisa Aubie and Sue and everybody. So I'm really glad to to bring you guys along on the journey. So I do want to get started on my show. But before I do tonight, and you know me, I like to keep things fun and lighthearted, and haha, we do this and that and everything, joke. But for a moment, I do want to get serious, and I do want to say that tonight's episode is dedicated to Joe Cahill, and you will find his obituary in comments on YouTube and Facebook. I knew Joe Cahill since I was 5 years old. He was a very big part of my life for a very long time. Certainly, we lost touch over the years, but over the last few years, through Facebook, I become friends again with his wife. And a couple of years ago, I went and visited them, and looking back, I'm just so grateful that I did. And then Joe had gotten sick, and I knew he had gotten sick, and just out of the blue on, I think it was Tuesday night, I texted his wife and said, "Hey, how's Joe feeling?" And got the news that he wasn't doing well, and I think he passed away a few hours later that night. So yeah, so this night's episode, it's still going to be mysterious and macabre and lighthearted, but it is dedicated to Joe Cahill in spirit. And also, Joe, thank you for giving me my taste in music. I was going to be relegated to a life of bubblegum pop if it weren't for you. So thank you very much for that. But so yeah, so please, after the show, please check out his obituary. Some of you, if anybody's watching from Bristol, you'll know the name. We went to school with his sister. Anybody from Sherman Park, this family grew up in Sherman Park. Yeah, so I am dedicating this episode to Joe Cahill, who, like I said, for many years was kind of a de facto big brother for me. So this one's for you, Joe. So now we're going to, and I also thought it was interesting that I had already had this subject planned of urban legends of Connecticut, and of course Joe is from Forestville, Michael Street, Sherman Park, and any Connecticut peeps know that area. Um, so um, so I just thought it was kind of cool that I'm doing a thing on Connecticut, and it's dedicated to Joe. So and also dedicated to Joe as I'm sharing some really exciting news about this show going forward. So I think that's kind of a cool thing too. So and thank you, Sue. Thank you for the congratulations. I feel, is it possible to feel proud and humbled at the same time? I am both. I am both. And God, I'm just meeting such amazing people along the way here. Thank you all. So yeah, so I want to talk about some Connecticut urban legends moving forward with things, of which there are many. Kind of, I don't know. It made me think of like the Bridgewater Triangle. Like the Bridgewater Triangle has something for everybody, whatever is your shtick. And there's something for you in the Bridgewater Triangle. Well, it's the same thing in Connecticut. I mean, if you're looking for UFO stories, there are UFO stories. If you are looking for Bigfoot sightings, there are Bigfoot sightings. If you are looking for vampire stories, if you're looking for ghost stories. Hey, what was my topic last week? The Connecticut witch trials, which we learned were just so much more savage and long lasting than Salem. And we never even knew about them. It was a real who knew moment, real facta obscura night, some real obscure facts. But on digging deeper, I mean, I have a whole list of Connecticut urban legends that we're not going to talk about tonight. I really had to narrow it down. I mean, I always say, I could do a part 2, part 3, part 4. We could have just a show called Connecticut Urban Legends, and have a different show every night or every week, and just go on, and that'd be the name of the show. So if anybody out there is listening, looking to develop a show, keep that one in mind. Connecticut Urban Legends. And keep me in mind to host it, because if it's haunted, I'm hosting. That's me, Jennifer at Gals. But to toss out some of those Connecticut urban legends to you, we've got the Jewel City vampires. Had anybody ever heard of them? It was actually Jewel City in Connecticut. It was an epidemic of tuberculosis, and tuberculosis, it emaciated people, and they became pale and gaunt, and they after people died of tuberculosis, the community was so afraid, that they were going to come back to life, that they dug up the corpses and they burned them. So yeah, so that's one of the urban legends I'm not going to talk about, but I don't ever remember hearing that one growing up. Anybody from Connecticut remember that one? So yeah, they dug up and buried the bodies, dug up and burned the bodies. Yeah. And then there's Dudleytown, which was an abandoned settlement. It was settled in the 1740s, and in Cornwall, and it was abandoned, and it's closed now. It's private property, and you can't visit it. And it's apparently it's very dangerous structurally, and the ground is not safe and all that kind of stuff. So I'd like to know more about Dudleytown, one of those vanishing colonies, which always fascinates me, like Roanoke, right? And I also don't remember hearing about Dudleytown growing up. There's the Black Dog of Hanging Hills. Don't know that one. I don't have a town listed on that one, but the Black Dog of Hanging Hills, apparently kind of like a Mothman thing. If you saw it once, well, it was a prophetic thing. If you saw it once, it was going to be a good prophecy. If you saw it a second time, something bad was going to happen. What I want to say about some of these things, a lot of these things do take place in northwestern Connecticut, the foothills of the Connecticut Berkshires, where I was coming at you live from a couple weeks back because I wasn't at Lizzie Lou Studios. I was visiting dear old mom, and she lives deep in the foothills of the Connecticut Berkshires. But it's very foresty and hilly and woody. So it's kind of like prime location for this. But speaking of that area, in Torrington, Connecticut, there is the Yankee Peddler Inn, which is closed. But room 353, a person named Alice, a woman named Alice, was rumored to haunt that. I would love to get in the Yankee Peddler in Torrington. Does anybody know about that? And it's also it's across the street from the Warner Theater in Torrington, which again, if you know that area, the Warner Theater was one of those old theaters from the 20s, called the Warner because actually the Warner Company, as in Warner Brothers, come in and refurbished it and rehabbed it. I was there in December for an elaborate magic show with my friend Joan, and this theater is just absolutely stunning, and it's been restored, and it's beautiful, and it's got woodwork and wonderful acoustics, and we had, I think, everywhere you sat was a great seat, and but every theater is haunted. We all know that, especially old theaters from the 20s, right? um there's in Bristol, Witches Rock Road. I had to practice saying that one. Say that one three. Do this and say that three times fast. Witches Rock Road, Witches Rock Road, Witches Rock Road. Which was supposedly a meeting place for witches in Bristol, and also a rumor or an urban legend that a witch or more than one were killed there. But again, that's we're not going to talk about that one, and so many more, so many more. And got the Green Lady Cemetery in Burlington. Geez, I did an episode on that. There was definitely a mysterious death in the swamp near there, and I had a personal experience with Joe Skorupski and his brother, and Larry Plord and Sheila Cahill. Um, and we were all in the Green Lady Cemetery, and we saw the green mist, and no doubt about it. And we all saw it, and the car wouldn't start. And but again, I'm not here to talk to you about that one. So, Witches Walk Road. Thank you, Lisa, and Baba Walla, coming at you live. Um, but yeah, so those are some of the urban legends that I'm not going to talk to you about tonight. But I wanted you to kind of get an idea that Connecticut does have a lot of urban legends. And being a Connecticut girl, and I know some of you watching are Connecticut people. Matt, you're a Connecticut person. Lisa, Rochelle, you guys haven't heard of these. And Matt, I'm going to go back to your comment. Barheck. I don't know where that one. I've never heard of that one. So it's like I've never heard of some of these places in Connecticut. So I'm going to be looking up so much more of these. So on that note, thank you. I just kind of had to jump into things after I was a little shook up about Joe. I do want to take a minute here and say hello again to everybody watching. We've got Erin and Joy, Matt. William is in the house. Hello, Will. Sue, thank you. Sue, if I look great, it's because Matt is giving me lighting and makeup advice. So thank you again, Matt, for that. And Joy and Michelle, hello. Stacy, oh my God, so nice to see you. And Stacy, I'm going to be talking about lake compounds. So I'm wondering if there's any relation. The name Norton is going to pop up later in this live stream. You'll have to answer that for us. Stay tuned. So nice to see you. And again, Michelle, and yeah, I'm a Silibert. And there's Matt saying, hey, hey. And like I said, thank you again, Matt. I really appreciate all the solid advice that you give me. I really appreciate you as a friend. And Sue, thank you for the congratulations on the show and the upcoming stuff. And I'm glad that you're part of this ride because you know we're going to be doing some of this stuff together. And Joy's probably been to Lake Compounds. You probably did see New Kids on the Block. Hold that thought. I'm going to talk about a big concert at Lake Compounds. Hold that thought. This is going to be a great show. And to the folks who said thanks for the loss and for Joe to rest in peace, absolutely. Again, we are dedicating this show to Joe. And well, if it isn't Cousin Scott in the house. Hello, Scott. Hello. And the Reverend Mark. Nice to see you as always. Well, everybody, it looks like you've all got your place. Looks like we've got a full house, 10 people in the house. Full house. We could take more. We could do 1,000. Join us. And get comfortable because we're about to talk about urban legends of Connecticut. So, like I said, guys, I told you the urban legends that we're not going to talk about. Let me drill things down a little bit more. Remember we talked about the Slender Man and like how easy it was for something with like no background and no history to just take hold and just become viral, right? Well, when I was a kid, things didn't go viral. You didn't have computers, but you know, we were young and things happened. Mark, you remember I told the story about, well, let me tell you guys a brief story. A little girl in my neighborhood got bit by a squirrel, and the adults had to bring her to the hospital. And we were under the charge of a neighborhood girl, and I was probably 5, and the neighborhood girl was 8. I'm not going to throw her name out there. I did last time. I won't do it this time. But she was watching all of us kids while the parents took the girl to the emergency room, and we were in their basement. And the girl had gotten bit by a squirrel, and it was very traumatizing for everybody. And this girl kept telling us, there's a squirrel with bloody teeth in the windows. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because, oh my God, I was 5 for the next 5 years. Every night when I went to bed, I thought there were squirrels with bloody teeth at my window. It was an urban legend for me personally. See how things kind of take off, you know? Isn't that weird, right? There was another story. Well, this part is true. There was a family in my neighborhood. And when I was very young, again, like 5, there was a boy my age, and there was an older brother, and he got sick and he died. And somebody in the neighborhood told us kids that the family buried him in the woods, and there were woods. There really were woods behind the house. So that was a really frightening, very localized neighborhood urban legend that took hold in our neighborhood only for a short period of time. You grow up, you get logical, you know what I mean? You don't ever tell your parents. Your parents, you know, you wouldn't tell your parents that kind of stuff that people told you that. But that's how things take hold. My mother lives in Harwinton, and quite a few years back, I lived there with her and with my son, and who's a baby. Shout out to Robbie. Hey, Robbie. He was a baby, and one night we woke up and we heard what sounded like, I don't know, Sheena of the jungle. My mother lives deep in the foothills of the Berkshires, and there's a lot of woods. And we heard, it sounded like a woman going on the vine, screaming, and you could hear the trees crashing and screaming woman. And what easily could have been, you know, construed as a banshee or something like that was probably an owl, which are great predators, and it had captured an animal that was screeching, or it was a nighthawk or something along those lines, or a fisher cat. So Oh, hi, Donna. Nice to see you. Glad you could join us tonight too. I want to make sure I say hello to everybody. Um, so, but again, that's how these kind of weird things happen. Oh, I heard a banshee in the woods. Well, no, we heard a screech owl carrying a raccoon away or something. I don't know, something like that. Um, and and also Paul Street in Wolcott. Now, I grew up on Paul Street in Bristol, but Paul Street in Wolcott, my grandparents lived there. And Michelle, I remember being in a car with Aunt Mary. My Aunt Mary is just a few years older than me. We really grew up together. So, for crying out loud, Michelle would have been 2, I would have been 4, and Aunt Mary would have been 6, something like that. And we were with Ricky Duchesne sitting in a car. There was a picnic on at our grandparents' house. And I remember them telling us so inappropriately the story of the girl and her boyfriend, and the car ran out of gas. And he said, "You stay here. I'm going to go get help. I'll be back in an hour." And she stayed in the car, and all night long she kept hearing scratching, and thought it was the trees. And in the morning, when he wasn't back, she decided to go out and look, and there was her boyfriend hanging from the trees, scraping the roof of her car. Dun, dun, dun. Well, God, I was 5. So, boy, I had a traumatic 5th year. All these strange things happened to me when I was 5. But my point is, you see how these things take hold, how these stories take hold, how people can believe them, and how, if this were the time of computers, how things could get a life of their own, like the Slender Man. Oh, hi, Two Brothers. Nice to see you. Two Brothers Extreme Paranormal has just joined the conversation. So as we were saying, I'm telling you about some urban legends that we're not going to talk about, telling you about some urban legends that I really kind of personally experienced. Um, Strangely, mostly at the age of 5 in Sherman Park, which must have been kind of like Derry, Maine. I don't know. I always said that. My cousin Amanda will tell you. I always said Bristol, Connecticut is like Derry, Maine. There's an underside to Bristol, but that's another show for another day. Or is it? Stay tuned and find out. So, Connecticut's really freaking weird. How about the Melonheads? Who knew about the Melonheads? I did not. I'm going to guess Two Brothers Extreme Paranormal probably knew about the Melonheads, and I'm going to guess that Matt probably knew about the Melonheads, but gals did not. Even though I lived in Connecticut for a very long time, grew up there. Mostly seen in Shelton, Trumbull, and Milford, Connecticut. Also strangely seen in Kirtland, Ohio, and in southern Michigan. So the Melonheads were small, red-eyed. Yeah, I knew it. I knew you did. So, anyways, they're small creatures. I almost thought of a Puckwudgie sort of like looking character, but sorry, my chair is so uncomfortable. I need a new chair. But these are more human than a Puckwudgie, but small with like bulbous heads and red eyes, cannibalistic, very aggressive, responsible for your cats missing, darting out from the woods, attacking cars, very sneaky, very mischievous, aggressive, feral, but human. And there are 2 different theories. There's one is the let's see, one is the Dr. Crow theory. And the Dr. Crow theory was in Kirtland, Ohio, and supposedly Dr. Crow performed macabre experiments on babies with encephalitis, which is, I believe, a swelling of the brain giving an enlarged head. So these children had some type of deformity to begin with, and he performed these experiments on them, and they rebelled and they escaped. Oh, hi Sybil, I'm glad you made it. Yeah, yikes is right. So and they rebelled against this Dr. Crow. So that's one theory. Another theory, and this one really specific to Connecticut in Fairfield County, is that these people, Jenna in the house, but that these people were under the care of the Fairfield Hospital Mental Institution, which was a real mental institution in Fairfield County. And it burned down. So the urban legend goes that when it was burned down by these people who were having experiments performed on them, and they escaped and they lived in the woods, and they became feral and lived in the woods and thrived there. Kind of made me think of The Hills Have Eyes, right? Anybody remember that movie and the remake? I thought both were pretty good for creep factor for sure. And then also the Garner Correctional Institute, which is in, I believe it's in Newtown, Connecticut, which is still active, and it is a prison, and I believe that it's a prison for mentally ill, or they at least have a place that houses mentally ill, and supposedly these Melonheads were there, and they escaped. It's a high security prison, but supposedly they escaped from there. So either they revolted and burned Fairfield down and lived in the woods around there and frightened people, or they escaped from the like the Correctional Institute for mentally ill. I don't know what would that's pretty creepy if you ask me. Both of those theories, well, all three of those theories, and the Dr. Crow theory too. Now, I mentioned three different geographies, if anybody noticed. I mentioned, because we are talking about urban legends of Connecticut, we've got Melonheads in Connecticut, Shelton, Trumbull, Milford, that area, but also the Kirtland, Ohio, had a similar theory to the Dr. Crow theory with what happened there. And then you've got the Southern Michigan. So three different locations: Connecticut, Kirtland, Ohio, and Southern Michigan. And I thought that was interesting that all three of these locations had a very similar take on this urban legend, but no place else did. This urban legend is really specific to these three locations. And then when I dug a little deeper, I found out that in United States history, the Kirtland, Ohio, and the area of Southern Michigan. Do I have a town listed here? I do not. But Kirtland, Ohio, and this area in Southern Michigan used to be part of the greater Connecticut Western expanse, and I am calling it the wrong name, and I apologize, I don't have the right name. But as you know, when this country was colonized, and like I said, this isn't a colonization conversation, but when the country was colonized, there were large colonies: the Massachusetts Bay Colony, the Connecticut Colony. So even though Kirtland, Ohio is very far away, and Southern Michigan is very far away from Connecticut, they were all part of the same colony at one time. And I just thought that was an interesting tie that brought those three locations together when no other locations have the same theory of Melonheads. So three different locations, and it turns out that as far away from each other as they were, they're actually all considered Connecticut. So I thought that was very strange. I'm going to turn my little heater on. Okay. So the Connecticut Western Reserve, I did have it written down. That's the name of it. So it was a very large Connecticut territory, and these areas were part of that. So again, I just thought that was really weird. This is the Melonheads are known to dart out of the woods and attack cars in an area called the Velvet Street, but for some strange reason, it's also called Dracula Drive. And this is it. This is one of the areas in Connecticut where the Melonheads are known to come out of the woods. I imagine that is a pretty scary road to drive down in the dark, even in the daytime, because you wouldn't see something, whether it would be a car coming towards you or a moose coming towards you. You know what I mean? And if you look to the right, it looks like it slopes down. So yeah, that's called Velvet Street, but it's also known as Dracula Drive, and that is one of the locations where the Melonheads are known to attack. So that is one of the urban legends of Connecticut. And like I said, I found that interesting. Now, the next one that we're going to talk about, it's called an urban legend, but it's not. It is totally, totally true. Joy said this looks like our driveway. Joy, I hope your driveway is a little better lit than this, and keep your doors locked. New fear unlocked. Melonheads. Keep your doors locked at night, folks. Um, but anyways, yeah, the next one that I'm going to present, it's called an urban legend. It is not. It is absolutely 100% factual, and it is true. And instead of even saying it, I'm just going to post the picture. A little shock value here. What are anybody's thoughts? Can anybody ID this, or does this give anybody any vibes? Oh, hi, Nathan. Thanks for joining us. So what are anybody's thoughts about that? So that is exactly, Sue, the Leatherman. Um, and he's not an urban legend. He is a real flesh and blood human being, and we know, yeah, Michelle, we certainly have Michelle. Me and Michelle used to see a guy walking on Farmington Avenue in Bristol with his dog. Let me pull this, with his dog over his shoulders like this. It was really bizarre, and for some reason, Leatherman always made me think of that guy. Um, but the Leatherman, this was real. He wasn't a legend. He wore a leather suit. Clearly, you can see that he wears something that is it's very thick. It is sewn together. You can see the stitching. Um, he would make a trek. I'm going to take the picture down for a minute. He would do a yearly trek, 365 miles round trip from Westchester, New York to Watertown, Connecticut by foot. 365 miles round trip constantly. Constantly. Again, from the Hudson River Valley to Watertown, Connecticut. And he wore this heavy leather suit. Look at his shoes. Looks like maybe, I don't know, maybe he looks like maybe he had some type of, I don't know, disability, for lack of a better word. I don't know. And you see there's a cave in the picture next to him. That is a real cave from Connecticut, because on his travels on that 365-mile yearly journey, he stayed in caves along the way. And this is one of the caves that he stayed in. And I just thought that was very, very interesting. He was thought initially to have been French Canadian. He spoke with what they thought, oh, look at that, Mark Ramponi. See, you never know what you're going to find here on Gals, the connections, the synchronicities that you're going to make. So I totally believe that, because this was between New York and Connecticut. So I totally believe that. But he spoke broken English, so they thought maybe he was French Canadian. And if anybody knows anything about where I'm from in Connecticut, there's a very large French Canadian population, so that would not be unusual to think somebody with a French accent or that kind of broken English would be from Canada. And nobody knew his name. Well, after his death, they found out that his name was Jules Boulet, and I apologize to his family. Throwing that up there, Lisa. That one's on the list. That there were just so many, I couldn't mention them all. God, oh my God! Again, who knew Connecticut held so many secrets? But the Leatherman, anyways, Jules Boulet, I was saying his name was, and turns out that he was actually probably born in France, not Canada. Probably born in 1939. He died in March 24th, in 18. I apologize. 1839, not 1939, 1839. He was born, most likely in France. He died March 24th, 1889, from mouth cancer, which was most likely from the prolonged use of tobacco products. I don't know, cigarettes, cigars, chewing tobacco. I totally get that, totally see that happening. And he was buried in Westchester. And yeah, he traveled and lived in caves along the way. So I thought that was a pretty good one too. But again, not an urban legend. This one is actually true. Now later, when I talk about lake compounds, I've got one for you that I found online that they called an urban legend. not. It's really true, and I'll tell you that one when we get to it. Looking forward to telling you that. So yeah, so Leatherman, true. Um, Auntie Kathy, ladies and gentlemen, this is my beautiful favorite Auntie Kathy in the house. Please welcome Auntie Kathy. Now I will watch my language. Okay, all right. Thanks for joining, Auntie Kathy. Um, so those are our first two stories tonight on Connecticut Urban Legends. And what do we have next? Let's say, let's say the Winstead Wild Man. Again, here we are talking about like the northwest corner of Connecticut, Litchfield County, very wooded, very foresty, dense forest where my mother lives. My mother has 10 acres, and everybody around her has 10 acres, and their 10 acres have 10 acres, and so it's just woods everywhere there. When you drive and you're driving 50 miles an hour you're driving on a road like this. Well, wide now, no, not like that. Definitely wider and better, and maybe with a little more civilization, but still not lit. And you know, um, giving props to my Auntie Kathy. Excuse me here for a minute, folks. I have to sit before we get into the Winstead Wild Man. Mark, you're saying hello to my Aunt Kathy. My Aunt Kathy is friends with our friend Mary Alford. So thank you for saying hello to my Aunt Kathy. Aunt Kathy, Mark, my friend Mark Ramponi is very, very good friends with Mary Alford. So I just wanted to give you guys that connection. That's so cool. And I just love that people make these connections here on Gals. So anyways, all right, back to the Winstead Wild Man. Again, very, very wooded area. He's Connecticut's unofficial Bigfoot legend. He supposedly he terrorized the locals. In 1895, a large, stark naked man, over 6 feet tall, covered in hair, bounding across roads, leaping fences, making deep guttural growls. And he was savage-faced, and he slept on people's porches. And eventually, it was an admitted hoax. A journalist actually, by the name of Riley Smith, wrote the story to sell newspapers. And it did. But, well, that kind of sensationalism was kind of allowed back then. But he admitted that it was a hoax. But the sightings continued. So I think that this guy Riley Smith gave kind of the Winstead Wild Man some context, right? And then you've got, let's see, let me see. Bear with me, guys, 1 second. I want to pull something up. I want you to see what things are like in that area. You see that? That is my mother's backyard. So the Winstead Wild Man, where the Bigfoot type sighting in 1895 was a hoax, their sightings are a very real thing. So when they say that this legend continued even after there was an admitted hoax, you can see why. I have another picture too. I was 15 feet away from this bear with a sliding glass door in between. I got another picture here. Bear with me. And the Litchfield Hills are very, very well known. They were very well known in the 1700s for its black bear population. And anybody, Mark Ramponi, you know, my Aunt Jeannie knows, Joy, you're in Western Kent. Joy, you've got to be near the Berkshires where you are. It's famous for black bears, and the black bears. I know, Aaron, but that would probably be a really bad idea. Aaron said he looks like he needs a hug. Yeah, I'll pass, even though I love the sentiment. But you could see why. All right, somebody made this Bigfoot legend up, and then they recanted it, but it continued. This is broad daylight at my mother's house, and they just come down and they help themselves to the bird feeders and the pears that fall off the trees and all that kind of stuff. And my mother said she has an understanding with them. They don't bother her, she doesn't bother them. So my 82-year-old mother lives with this, 3 seasons out of the year. Yeah, Joy, you're in the woods in Western Mass, exactly, in the Berkshires. Very famous then and now, and especially even more now, for black bears. So you could see how that urban legend could continue. When I'd have to say that would be, if we were debunking, like we just proved Leatherman was true. If we were debunking, we would say Winstead Wildman debunked, or is it? Or is it? Because the sightings continued. Now, I've heard late at night, if it's really, really quiet and the moon is right, the Winstead Wildman will make an appearance with his faithful dog, Dixie Lou Who. And that is the Winstead Wildman. And I wonder what anybody has to say about that. That's my little joke for the night. Mark, I love you. My friend Mark lives in that area, so I just have to share that. But seriously, so yeah, that's my friend Mark. Mark, you actually figured quite a few of these because you live where you live was a really big part of the Green Lady Cemetery. So and Mark lives in a very historical area, again in Winstead, in that Winstead Wildman area. Yeah, the wild years, I'm sure. I'm sure. So, anyways, the Winstead Wildman, I don't know if I want to call that debunked because sightings did continue. But remember what I said about like being at my mother's and hearing what we knew was an owl with an animal that easily somebody could have said, oh my God, it's a banshee or something. So, but you really have to keep a logical head about yourself when it does come to these things. Um, but I also have to say that the Connecticut Berkshires, having been, since 1982, spent a good portion of my life there, it would be a prime location for a Bigfoot sighting or a cryptid sighting or some type of super huge bird sighting or that kind of thing. It just strikes me as that kind of area. So Winstead Wildman, another Connecticut urban legend. How about, here's one I had never heard of, the house on Gardner Lake. And I feel like the house behind me, the big house, I feel like that's the house on Gardner Lake. Never heard of that one. This story takes place in Salem, Connecticut, not Salem, Massachusetts, Salem, Connecticut, which I don't think I even realized that there was a Salem, Connecticut. And I say that because, again, all my Connecticut people, how many of these did you really know? I was really surprised making it to 62 years old and spending a big, big part of my life growing up in Connecticut and going, I never heard of any of this stuff. But the house on Gardner Lake, this actually is sort of a story of a haunting. So in the Salem, Montville, Bosra section of Connecticut, Bosra, I had never heard from. I mean, I only heard of it for the first time last July. I had never heard of Bosra, Connecticut. So it's in, I guess this is in the southeastern Connecticut. So now we're going a little bit different from the Litchfield Hills. Southeastern Connecticut. And it's also the home of Gardner Lake State Park. And there's a beautiful lake there. And in 1895, a family lived on Gardner Lake and they had a beautiful home and they lived on the lake. But they decided that they wanted to live, for whatever reason, on the other side of the lake. Maybe the land was fertile. Maybe it had a better view. I'm just going to let you guys have this conversation back here. But so what they wanted to do was take their house and move it across the lake. So what they did was, and you know that you can move houses. We do know this, and especially back then, it probably didn't have a basement, but it probably had a foundation. So they put the house on skids, and the lake was frozen. This was in the middle of the winter. The lake was frozen. They knew this was going to be a 2-day project. So on the skids, they moved the house across the lake, and then they stopped and they had to go home, go to bed, and the next day they were going to finish the job and move the house the rest of the way across the lake. Well, in the morning when they got up, the ice had broke and the house was going down in the lake. Well, the family was able to salvage many, many things. And they also didn't salvage many, many things. And one of the things that was left in the house was a piano, and that house sunk to the bottom of the lake where it still sits today, believe it or not. It's said that from anywhere, from all directions of the lake, when the wind is just right, you can hear piano music playing. And it's also said by divers that when they dive in, what's the name of the lake? Gardner Lake. When they dive in Gardner Lake, they can hear piano music playing. So I thought that was a really interesting story. It's a little short blurb, but again, one that I had never heard of growing up in Connecticut. It's called the house on Gardner Lake. I think it should be called the house in Gardner Lake. Right? But yeah, so they moved their house across the lake on skids, left it there overnight, and it went through the ice, and it still sits there today. And if you listen just right, you can still hear piano music. So now we're getting to number 5. Let me see. I'm looking at my pictures. Now we're getting to number 5. This is kind of the big one. This is Lake Compounce in Bristol, Connecticut. I was really excited about this. A lot of interesting things about that area of Bristol, Connecticut. So I grew up in Bristol. I'm from Bristol. Many people watching tonight are from Bristol. Lake Compounce is in our blood. We grew up there. It's changed. Oh, look at the green screen through the green in my mug. That's so funny. Anyways, we grew up around Lake Compounce, and in my day and age, Lake Compounce went through many, I don't know, kind of incarnations. But before I talk about Lake Compounce, I want to again give a shout out to my cousin, pro wrestler Grappling Greg, who is many champions, many belts, many championships. If you ever have a chance to watch him wrestle, you will not regret it. It is so much fun. But not only is Greg a wrestler, but Greg provided me with so much information on Lake Compounce. And yeah, Lisa, Lake Compounce in our high school days, guys, full disclosure, Lisa Aubrey and I and Mark Ramponi, anybody else, who else here is from Connecticut? Full disclosure, the drinking age was 18 when we were 18. That's how old I am. That's how old some of us are. So lots of fun times at Lake Compounce, pitchers of beer. But I'll talk about that in a second. But right now, like I said, I wanted to, again, give a shout out to my cousin, Grappling Greg, because when I asked him if he had any information on Lake Compounce or had heard of any hauntings or rumors, within a minute, boom, cousin Jennifer, he must have had crazy thumbs going like crazy. And he sent me a bunch of shit, and I validated it, and it was really exciting. So my cousin Greg worked at Lake Compounce for 12 years. And here he is. We've got 2 pictures. So in the top left, Greg he's got the blue shirt on, and he's wearing the lanyard, and he's standing up, and he's got his oh my God. Yeah. Well, I'm giving my shout out to Greg. 25-cent beers. We remember. Whoever got carded? Nobody. Lisa Aubie and Stacy. Oh my God. So many concerts. And again, hold that thought. I'll talk about concerts there too. A lot of stuff to say about Lake Compounce. Amazing place. But yeah, my cousin Greg with Shawnee Savage. I think he was a disabled kid who would go and ride the rides. And then also Greg in this picture. That's not Greg, the girl in the front. Greg is in the background operating the machine. But Greg was like I said, Greg worked there for 12 years. So I mean, if anybody's going to have stories, about weird stuff happening there, cousin Greg, Grappling Greg is. And again, thank you so much, Greg. But yeah, so many incarnations. So Mark is talking about 25-cent beers. I mean, my God, how much could a pitcher of beer been back there? Jeez, short money. They really didn't card people. I don't think I don't want to say they just really didn't care, but they just really didn't care if you were 17 or 18. If you were 14, yeah, that mattered, but not if you were 17 or 18. And the ballroom with the wooden floor and the wooden walls, and you could just smell the old pitchers of beer. And I actually, let's see, what year? Can I find the year here? Was it 19? I don't have it here. Shit. Believe it or not, Frank Sinatra played in the ballroom at Lake Compounds, and 5,000 people showed up, and it's like, oh my God, could you? I remember like dancing like very close. Michelle said she saw Max Creek there. I don't know, Michelle, see Max Creek in the ballroom, or did you see it when they changed it into a concert venue? Um, I don't know. I never saw a concert at Lake Compounds, a big concert. I saw small stuff in the ballroom. Um, Oh man, I remember seeing a band called Tire Biter. But you know what? Even before the high school days, Michelle knows, before the high school days, we used to go to Lake Compounds on the 4th of July with our families after our picnics to watch the fireworks. And it was Colonel Clown and the talent show and all these talented children. And oh my God. Michelle sitting on Uncle Tommy's shoulders watching the fireworks out over the lake. I mean, good Lord, we're talking about 1970, 71. And then after that, we got a pool and we started having parties at our house. Yeah, Frank Sinatra, Count Basie. Yeah, Michelle, all that stuff was outside. I know. I'm just bringing up about how far back it was. Count Basie, the Dorsey Brothers, real big band. Lake Compounds was famous for it. They had a wonderful ballroom. And then when my generation came along, we saw live bands and drank pitchers of beer and danced our asses off. I'm telling you, this would have been in 81, 82, 83, in that period. It was, I mean, I have some really fun memories. Listen, I didn't have to stop drinking for no reason. I had to stop drinking because I was really, really good at it for a really long time. But it was just a lot of fun. And again, the music and the dancing and the friendships and amazing place. I also want to say that my cousin Jeremy Sparks Jr. also, I think, still works there. Yeah, Sue, good years. Not just being a little kid and the family memories. Slim Cox and the Cowboy Caravan. I was like racking my brain, going, what the hell was the name of the country and western band that played on the 4th of July at the Colonel Clown show? Oh my God. So I think Slim Cox and the Cowboy Caravan was like the house band for Lake Compounds for the outdoor stage. Um, yeah, and then again, when we got older, it was Boxcar Willie was I. That does not surprise me at all. So many famous names there. And then later they turned into a real concert venue. And again, I keep saying hold that thought. We're going to talk about that. Well, where Lake Compounds is, let's see, it's certainly in a long settled area of Bristol. It's on water, so anything on water is long settled. And I apologize for any history here that I may or may not get right, but it seems to me that Chief Compounds, who was of the Mattatuck Indians in 1864, he gave the deed to the land around the lake to the settlers of the area. And before I tell you about that, I do want to say that where Lake Compounds is, to give you kind of a bigger idea, anybody who's into like movies like A Haunting in Connecticut and that kind of stuff, that took place in Southington. And that house, The Haunting in Connecticut, is only 7 miles from Lake Compounds. Also in the area of Lake Compounds, which my cousin Greg said that this was proven not to be coming from Lake Compounds, but from the area, is a mysterious humming noise in the area that they think is some type of industrial noise, but they haven't really pinpointed it. Also, Aaron Hernandez was born and raised in this area as well. So it's just kind of an interesting thing. Again, Connecticut, Bristol's got this kind of weird underbelly to it. Let's see. So yeah, so between Southington, from this little area, the Haunting in Connecticut and Southington, and you've got Lake Compounds, obviously named after Chief Compounds. But after he gave the deed away. The story goes he went across the lake in a kettle. Now, I don't know what that means. Probably not a cauldron. So I don't know. He's going across the lake in a kettle and he drowned. He died. There are two theories. One is that he was drunk and he drowned and he died. And the other theory is that the people in the Mattatuck tribe, his own people, turned on him for selling the land. I don't know how much it was sold for or what the trade was for, and I'm not here to make any commentary on that. So Michelle is saying that my grandfather used to say that chief compounds drown in a kettle in the middle of the lake. So there's that story going back to even my grandfather saying it. And then so the person who brokered the sale, I gotta pull my heater closer. The person who brokered the sale was a Mr. Norton. And Mr. Norton had a unfortunate demise as well. He climbed a ladder and he fell off the ladder, broke his neck, and he died. So the two people involved in this deal really met a very bad end. Now, Stacy, that's why I wonder if Mr. Norton is any relation to these Nortons. And interestingly, I would throw out there that as anybody from Bristol knows, that Lake Compounds has actually ended up in the hands, out of the hands, and I think in the hands again of the Norton family. And I apologize for not knowing the details about that. I don't mean to offend anybody by not knowing the details. I do know that the Norton name, as associated to Bristol, is very prominent in relation to Lake Compounds. So yeah, so Stacy, if that is the case with Mr. Norton, let us know, and let us know if you have anything interesting to say about this stuff. Let's see. So I'm wondering, is this land maybe a little bit cursed? I don't know. So let's see. Lake Compounds, as it's called now, is the oldest continuous running amusement park in the United States. It opened in 1846, and initially it was just picnic tables and swimming, a bathing lake, they called it. So it was just initially picnic and swimming. And in 1911, they built a carousel, and the carousel at Lake Compounds is exquisite. I just can't say enough wonderful things about it. Massachusetts people appreciate a good carousel too. We all know the one under the clock down in Hull. But the carousel at Lake Compounds is absolutely stunning. But also in Bristol, Connecticut is the Carousel Museum. And if you ever go to Bristol, Connecticut, I highly recommend that you go to the Carousel Museum. It is just such fine and beautiful craftsmanship. And carousel horses are really a niche. Oh yeah, Paragon Park. Like Lake Compounds, very much like Lake Compounds. Yeah, my Aunt Kathy and my cousin TJ both worked at the Carousel Museum. I was going to mention that. I didn't know that about TJ. Wow. Both worked at the Carousel Museum. So if you ever get to Bristol, Connecticut, do go to the Carousel Museum. You won't be disappointed. I think that's so funny that you can see the green screen through the green in my cup. So anywho, now the Wildcat roller coaster, that was built in 1927. It's an all wooden roller coaster. And I will tell you what, you can go to YouTube and you look up Wildcat, and you look up YouTube, and it is an unadulterated ride, filmed ride from the front. Put it up on your big screen, high def TV, and ride that sucker. I'll never get on a roller coaster again. I really enjoyed that video of doing the entire. And the anticipation is no different from when we were 17 and 18 riding it. Going all the way up until down you go. And you look at this thing and you would think that it would never hold up, but it has. And it was built in 1927. 1941, Frank Sinatra. That's when he played Wow, 1941, he played the ballroom. That was before he was like popular culture. That was when he was like strictly big band. Isn't that interesting? Largest crowd, 5,000 people that they ever had in the ballroom. Also, a tidbit: there's a train that circles the lake. It's a very fun train ride, and it goes through the woods. The very creepy woods around there, and there's rattlesnakes in that area as well. Um, the roller coaster, excuse me, the train, it was designed by the very first actor to portray Sherlock Holmes, a man named William Gillette. And I think we know that the Gillette name is popular around Connecticut as well. So, so let's see. All right. So there were some real misfortunes that absolutely happened at lake compounds. Okay, there was, and some of these things my cousin told me, and some of these things I looked up and found out, and then I'm going to tell you about an urban legend that is not an urban legend. That is absolute fact, and I know because I lived it. So let's see. Let's see what Stacy's got to say. Stacy is a Norton. She's married to Bristol Norton. So brothers, one was very involved, and Stacy's husband, Mr. Norton, John, was related to Levi Norton, not really involved in the park. John's brother has pictures of Levi with their grandfather. Stacy, thank you so much for sharing that little bit of history. And I think it's very fortuitous that you tuned in tonight and that you had something to offer. Thank you so much. And thank you to John for sharing that little bit of family history as well. Much appreciated, Stacy. Um, so very interesting. Like I said, it just kind of shows that the Norton family, in one aspect or another, had been involved. And just very interesting. Again, thank you, Stacy. Appreciate that. So there were definitely some real misfortunes at lake compounds. I don't know if I would say because it's cursed, but I would say anytime you have a place where people go all the time over long periods of time, shit's going to happen. More often than not, shit doesn't happen, right? But things are going to happen when you've got someplace where people go. So give you an idea. That's my childhood there. There's the carousel under that green roof. There's the roller coaster in the background, and you could get hunt dogs, and you could play miniature golf, and you could go in the haunted house ride and all kinds of stuff. I remember vaguely a scary story about the haunted house. But anyway, some tragic things that did happen at lake compounds. A child was killed by a fallen limb. A limb got struck by lightning and it fell on a child and he was killed. A maintenance worker was killed working on the Boulder Dash. At one point, an attendant's shirt got caught in the scrambler and he was pulled under. It was a very tragic end for him. A child drowned on the lake plunge water slide, and a 16-year-old employee was killed on the tornado. So some of these things I got from my cousin Greg, and the information I got from him, I did validate through some sources online, and some things I found myself as well. There are definitely reports of there's a report of a lady in white that I never knew about at lake compounds. That this one I did not hear from my cousin. I found this one online. A young woman disappeared crossing a bridge. I don't know of a bridge on lake compounds, but what do I know, right? And it's been there a very long time. But she was crossing a bridge and she vanished. She disappeared, and reportedly you can hear her wailing late at night across the lake. There are reports of shadows, reports of orbs, voices, laughter, mysterious music. Again, in a feeling of being watched in the ski area. Again, I think where you have a place where there's so much energy and merriment, merrymaking, people drinking, and lots of music, and an amusement park is a very high energy place, very, very high energy place. I believe it would leave an imprint, even if it's not a haunting. You would, of spirits, there would be some type of residual echo going on in a place like that. That's just the theory, according to gals. But the last two things that I'm going to kind of wrap things up here because I have been talking for over an hour. But the last two things about lake compounds, one was the concerts. I think in around 83, 84, 85, somewhere in that area, they had built a really big 82, maybe even 82, 83, 84, somewhere in the early 80s. They built a really big concert venue, NKOTB. Somebody saw, Lisa, did you see Rick Derringer there? Is that what you're telling us, that you saw a concert there? They had some big concerts there, including Milli Vanilli. And who knows Milli Vanilli? And actually, what's Milli Vanilli famous for? Not even their song. Milli Vanilli is famous for getting caught lip syncing live on stage. And it was at Lake Compounds that happened. So it was in Bristol, Connecticut, that Milli Vanilli met their demise. And I say met their demise. One of the members of Milli Vanilli killed himself over this. They had won a Grammy Award. Yeah, it turns out they were lip syncing, and from what I understand, they were begging the record label. They really wanted to sing, and they felt that they were really good at it. And the record label said, "No, you're just our pretty faces." And something happened, and it was in front of thousands and thousands of people at Lake Compounds, and it just destroyed their reputation, and it ruined their lives. I feel really bad. It just ruined their lives, you know. So that was something at Lake Compounds, and that's not an urban legend. That really happened. We know that. But the one I'm going to wrap up with about Lake Compounds, I saw this online, and it said it was an urban legend. In 1981, a girl was killed on the roller coaster. And I said, well, I'm not going to do any research on that, because simple. I know that's not an urban legend. I know that's true. And I'm going to tell you what happened from my perspective on that June night in 1981. And again, I was a little miffed that the internet called this an urban legend. This is not an urban legend. This really happened. And so in June 1981, I know where I was. I was living on Paul Street in Sherman Park, and I was working at King's Department Store. Any of my Bristol people, you know that King's used to be Mammoth Mart. You were either going to go up Mammoth or down the Mart. And Mammoth Mart, if you don't know what Mammoth Mart is, you do know what King's was. And so it used to be Mammoth Mart, and then it became King's. And I lived, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile from there. Stacy, you know where I'm talking about. Stacy, get out, get out, get out, get out. Stacy was there the night Milli Vanilli had their tragic incident. Oh my God. Stacy, did you even realize the magnitude that night of what happened? Oh my God. Wow. That is amazing. So yeah, Sue, you called that out as lip sync. Stacy was there. Sue, I went to school with Stacy. I've known Stacy since I was about 5. And Stacy is from my hometown in Bristol. That is amazing. That is amazing. Thank you, Stacy. I'm so glad you tuned in. Thank you so much for sharing. Let's see, where was I? Oh, all right. So yes, I was talking about that quote unquote urban legend of somebody, and probably in any, I don't know, Six Flags or Disneyland, anywhere there's a big amusement park with a big roller coaster or big funky rides, there's going to be stories of people dying. Stories of people dying on Space Mountain and all kinds of shit. Well, again, I'm here to tell you that the one I'm going to tell you about is not an urban legend. And again, thank you, Stacy. Oh my God, I just can't believe it. Wow. But all right, so Milli Vanilli, again, those concerts happened a little later. So backing up a little, June of 1981, I was working at King's Department Store, and I was living with my mother on Paul Street in Sherman Park, and I got off, the store closed at 9. I get off of work at 9. I remember it was June, it was the summer, and I probably walked home. It was so nice, I probably walked home. And I got home at probably, the store closes at 9. You stay till 9:30. By the time I got home, it was probably 9:45. Probably made something to eat, put my pajamas on, went in my bedroom, and I had a little black and white TV in my room. And at 10 o'clock, Dallas came on. 1981, Friday night at 10 o'clock. Look it up yourselves. Look up TV Guide. You will find that Dallas was on. I don't know if this was pre or post Who Shot JR, but anyways, I watched Dallas from 10 to 11. I was 17 years old. Um, and I watched Dallas, and then the news came on at 11 o'clock. And the news said that a young woman had died on the roller coaster at Lake Compounce in Bristol, Connecticut. So the news, probably Channel 3, probably out of Hartford. Bristol doesn't have its own news station like that. And I said, holy shit, I wonder if it's anybody I knew. And then I said, no, can't be anybody I knew. No, because Lake Compounce is an amusement park and people come from all over New England to go there. And thousands of people ride that roller coaster every day. Can't be somebody I know. Of course, everybody I knew rode that roller coaster. And it turned out that on that night in June of 1981, and I'm so sorry that I don't have the exact date, and I apologize, a 16-year-old young woman, girl, named Michelle Johnson fell from the roller coaster from the top of the Wildcat in 1981 at Lake Compounce. And not only was this a news story, but I knew her. I went to school with her at Eastern. Stacy, you went to school with her. Anybody who went to Eastern with me. Michelle, I think, was a year behind us. Oops, she lived down by the, I want to say down by the Shawn Drive area, down by that area. And Michelle, may she rest in peace, was a nice girl. We hung out with her quite a bit. She was part of our little crowd. Back in the day, we certainly partied with her and smoked cigarettes and smoked pot and drank, and she was a nice girl. And she had a younger sister, and I can't remember her sister's name, but her younger sister went out with my brother back in the day, back in the 1980s. So it's very sad and very tragic story. But I wanted to say the dangers of the internet. We don't want Michelle Johnson to ever be forgotten. She was somebody's daughter. She was a friend. She was somebody's sister. And the internet had her labeled as an urban legend, and a girl was, an urban legend, that a girl, blah blah. No, a real human being. That happened to a real person, and we knew her, and it was very sad and very tragic. And I think it's especially sad and tragic when things like that happen when you're 16, 17 years old and so young, so that was another urban legend that is debunked, not urban legend, fact about Lake Compounce and Bristol. So I think that Lake Compounce was a really good way to wrap up urban legends on Connecticut. So thankful to my cousin Grappling Greg, and to Stacy for all your comments, and everybody for contributing so much. This was a really fascinating subject to research, urban legends of Connecticut. And like I said at the beginning of the show, this could be its own show. I have more pages of stuff. Like Lisa said, there's the Devil's Hop Yard. There's so much more. I'd love to do an episode just on Witches Rock Road. So much. But I think I've got to thank everybody for watching. And again, ask you all to please like, subscribe, give me a heart, give me a comment. It helps me be seen. But tonight's show is exactly why I do this interaction. Stacy, I am so thrilled for the interaction with you tonight and the knowledge that you gave us. And so Mark Ramponi knew Michelle Johnson. And for the interaction with Mark and the interaction with Lisa, Lisa, I miss you. Me and Lisa used to go out to dinner, I don't know, every 3 months or so, but we're not close to each other geographically anymore. And that makes me cry that we can't see each other the way we used to. But again, this is why I do this, to connect with people, to chat with people, and to talk about some really cool stuff. And I want you guys to converse. This was just such a fun show to hear from everybody. Again, Stacy, Greg, Mark, Rochelle, everybody, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed tonight's episode of Gals, Ghosts, and Ladies. I'm going to repeat it tomorrow night because I'm not going to be home. I am going to the Emory Estate. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And I do want to say one more time that tonight's episode is dedicated to Joe Cahill. And I have to say that's why we had such a great show, because Joe was here in spirit. So again, everybody, thank you so much for your participation. What a fun and awesome show. And I will see you all very soon. Take care. Have a good night. And thank you again. Bye-bye.